Welcome to Creative Soul Life and episode 13, The Magic of Rituals, Routines, and Habits. So today we're going to talk about those, but not so much the how-to, but the why. Why rituals, routines, and habits are so important. And especially their importance right now at this time of year when things are going to get kind of crazy the next couple of months. Or if you're like most moms, things are crazy all the time. It's just a little extra special of it coming up with the holidays. So why are rituals and routines so important? The number one reason is decision fatigue. And what is that? That's exactly what it sounds like. When you make so many decisions, it just wears you out. According to the American Medical Association, the average person makes 35,000 decisions by the time they go to bed. 35,000. Just saying that makes me tired. It's one of the main purposes of developing routines and habits is to help prevent that decision fatigue, to help get some things on autopilot, helps you simplify your life and conserve energy for the decisions that really matter, like leading a creative life. So we're going to go backwards from the title and start talking about habits first. The guru on habits is Charles Duhigg. I hope I'm saying his name right. He wrote The Power of Habits, and it is a fascinating look at the impact of habits on your brain and ultimately on your life. Studies have found that when something's truly a habit, the brain stops participating in the act of doing these. Habits are stored in the basal ganglia, and the more that is stored, the less full brain activity that's needed. That's essentially the crux of a habit, is it is something that's done automatically on autopilot. For example, driving. When you first started learning how to drive, you had to think about everything. You had to coordinate your feet moving, your hands moving on the steering wheel, looking at everything, looking at your dashboard. It required a lot of energy. And now, other than trying to figure out where you're going and dealing with traffic, you don't think about what your feet are doing. It's just automatic. Your feet move automatically. Your steering is automatic. You're not concentrating on that center in the middle of that line and keeping yourself steady. Your body just does it for you. Your brain is taken over in the habit part of yourself. It does it for you. You don't have to think, which gives you more energy to do decision making, like where to go, how you're driving, how to deal with the traffic. Other examples are washing your hands after going to the bathroom. As a child, you had to be taught that and reminded that and asked, did you do that? But as an adult, do you even think about it? It's just automatic. For me, showering's automatic. I get in the shower and I do pretty much the same thing every time, and I don't think about it, which is why my mind can wander in the shower. Do you have some of your best ideas in the shower? I do, because your brain is free. The habit has taken over, and your rest of your brain is free to wander and think creatively. So one thing Charles talked about with habit is that essentially it starts with a cue, and then you have the pattern of whatever it is, the activity or whatever, and then there's a reward. So for example, getting in the shower, stepping into the shower is the cue. The pattern takes over, and I guess the reward is I'm clean when I'm done. That's essentially a reward, or clean hands after the bathroom. This sequence, there's something that lets your brain know it's time to do. It's time for autopilot to kick in. It knows how to do this. It's done it enough. And that cue starts it. And on top of that, we have the ability to kind of create habits by chunking activities together. For example, I get up in the morning, I walk in the kitchen, I head to the coffee pot, my brain takes over and I start making a cup of coffee. My mind's again wandering about what I'm going to do for the day and stuff. That habit takes over because the cue is walking over to the coffee pot. Actually, I guess the cue for me is pulling my coffee mug out of the cabinet, because then habit takes over. I step to the fridge to get the cream, step over to the coffee pot, and I'm not thinking about the physical act of making coffee at that point. Habit has taken over from the cue of pulling down my coffee cup. And you have that ability to modify things by making that pair of the cue. I'm trying to create a new habit of taking a walk every day. And I used to do it first thing in the morning. So it used to be my cue was get up and I would head out the door usually on a run or a walk or a run. And that was the only time I had when my kids were little. It was the only time I was alone to do that. And so it became a habit. Get up, roll out of bed, bathroom, into my clothes, out the door. Now, that isn't the best time for me. Actually, my habit now is getting that cup of coffee. So I'm trying to create a new habit by I eat lunch and then take a walk. So I'm hoping that my brain will go into that autopilot mode of after I've eaten lunch, it's time to put on some shoes and head out the door. And then it becomes less decisions. Do I want to take a walk? Do I feel like taking a walk? What's it like outside? I've put my dishes away at the sink, to the door I go. Makes that sort of automatic process that defines a habit. So then what's the difference between a habit and a routine? In an article in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine on the National Library of Medicine website says the difference between a habit and a routine is the cue. Habits depend on the cue and routines do not. So there's probably a gray line in there, like say, for example, your morning routine. Again, when I pull out my coffee cup, habit takes over. But sometimes that morning routine varies depending on my activity of the day. Most times my routine is I make the coffee and then I head outside on my porch. And I have a few different things that I do in the morning, like do my health journal. I have another type of journal I'm doing, some meditation or reflection. And then I have an extra, either a puzzle book like Sudoku or crossword, or I have another book I'm reading. So I kind of have a routine in the morning, but I'm not on autopilot for this routine to happen. I make some, conscious small decisions. Am I doing a puzzle book today or am I reading one of my other books? But the decision that I'm going to do that's already done. It's routine. Grab my morning stuff, head out on the porch with my coffee. So routines can also simplify your life as well. They're not as automatic and autopilot as a habit, but there's a set pattern to it that helps reduce some of that decision and decision fatigue. An evening routine is an excellent example. If you have children, you probably have a bedtime routine with them. So when my kids were little, it looked something like we had dinner, a little bit of playtime, and then it was bath time, brush teeth time, read a story, go to bed. And this happened roughly the same time every night. This created a sense of comfort for the children and for myself. There were no arguments. It was done the same time, the same sequence. There wasn't an argument, am I having a bath or not? We did that every night. Do I brush my teeth or not? Did that every night and in that same order. And so there was a familiarity to it. There was a regularness to it. And that was comforting, especially for children. They thrive on routines. I'm sure you've noticed your teachers, if your kids are of school age, teachers have certain routines they do in the morning when they arrive at school. They have certain routines when they head out to lunch or to recess. Children really like that sense of comfort of a routine and knowing what to expect. For them, then there's less trying to adapt to a surprise. For us adults, it's that same kind of comfort because we're not having as many decisions. There's a comfort in a routine of knowing what's next, knowing what's coming next and not having to think about it. I, as an adult, have a bedtime routine. In fact, my bedtime routine is probably better than when I had kids because at that point you're so exhausted. Do you just keep hitting play on the TV or something? It's not always the healthiest routines. My current evening routine with my husband is we eat dinner. We play a game on the Xbox for about an hour. And then roughly 9 o'clock, we stop, get our showers, come back to the couch for one show, just one. We're pretty disciplined about it. Then we head to the back. We have 2 different bathrooms, so it makes it easy. I go in mine, use the bathroom, brush my teeth, and then we head to bed. It's the same routine every night. Sometimes the times vary a little, maybe if it's a weekend or something, but there's no question of, are we watching TV tonight? Are we this? Are we that? We just do our routine, and especially because at night you're tired. You don't want to think about these things, and having that routine just sort of eases us in, keeps us at a consistent bedtime, and it's very relaxing. Routines are also a form of control, and they can help keep you kind of grounded and in charge of your life, especially when things are going on that are unusual, like holidays, hurricanes, even visitors. I don't know if you've experienced being out of routine. My parents were just here for a visit, and it was a great visit, very relaxing. We thoroughly enjoyed it. But at one point, my mom and I talked about it, that we were out of our routines. My husband and I were out of our evening routine. She was out of her evening routine. And while we clung to some things, like she has a certain snack each evening and a cup of tea about the same time. And so I would grab a glass of wine and snack, and we would sit and chat, where she would normally watch TV and we would too. We were chatting, but we clung to that little bit of routine to try and, keep that sense of familiarity so that our bodies kind of kick into a bit of that habit and cue of, okay, I'm doing these things. I must be getting ready to go to bed. Now, granted, we would stay up talking way beyond when we would normally, that would kick in and go to bed, but that's okay. But you do feel a little bit off at times when you're out of that routine. If you're out of your morning routine or evening, and that can cause a little bit of stress, just that slight feeling of out of control. And it's not always bad, and it's okay when it's temporary, but it kind of stresses to you that importance of having those routines in your life so that your life runs a little bit more smoothly. One routine my husband and I have started is meal planning together. It's made such a world of difference in my day-to-day life of not coming to 3 or 4 o'clock or even in the morning, trying to figure out what I'm going to do for dinner that night. Do I have all the ingredients? Do I have to make an emergency run to the store because someone's in the mood for this or that? Now we actually use Trello for this. We have a shared board. He's kind of set in what he eats. So we have all the things listed out, and there's some room for new recipes now and then. But on Sundays, I usually say, hey, have you looked at the have you looked at the menu for the week? He'll jump in and kind of move, if you're familiar with Trello, it kind of moves the cards around. And then I'll check it. And if there's something on there like I don't have or whatever, I'll be like, no, we got to substitute this out. But then it lets me fit those in as well to how my week's going and the busyness of it. For example, on Thursdays, a lot of times I have an art Zoom call. So that night kind of tends to be something like leftovers or frozen pizza, something easy. And a day that I'm not going out, I'm home for the day, I can plan something like chili, where I'll be, making it early and kind of babysitting it all day. It has taken so much stress off to, one, do it on Sundays. So then on Mondays, I can plan when I'm heading to the store, getting a grocery order or something. And then two, knowing ahead of time what I need to pull out of the freezer. It removes so much thinking about it that I love it. And I know some people even go so far as they have a week or 2 weeks. They have the same thing every week, or a 2-week plan. They have the same thing for maybe 3 or 4 months. And it just takes that pressure off of thinking about it and worrying about it. And do I have the ingredients when your grocery list is pretty much the same and the menu is pretty much the same? It just takes so much of that decision fatigue away. And when you have that energy given back to you, again, you're able to apply it in other ways in your life that is a little more fulfilling than stressing about what you're making for dinner at night. Okay, so we've talked about habits and routine. What about rituals? Where does that fit in? How is that different from routines and habits? To me, rituals are what bring the magic. Rituals elevate. They set the mood or intention. Religion uses rituals to link their followers together. If you think of the liturgies like God be with you, also with you, the sign of the cross, there's certain patterns where religious leaders do something and the followers react to it, and it's the sameness, and you settle in and have that comfort there, and that comfort that you're doing some of the same things as the person next to you. There's kind of a holy magic to that fostering that sense of belonging, that you're a part of something greater. There's a sense of ritual with patriotism. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance in class every day or before ball games, singing the national anthem. It links people together. It puts a tone of reverence in there. It is a way of elevating and putting everyone in the same frame of mind or on the same path. For yourself, rituals can do the same thing in your life. On beceremonial.com, they say, ritual is an intentional, symbolic action that helps create meaning in your life. And daily rituals help encourage mindfulness and being present in the moment. I find it helps ease transition into new tasks. One of my rituals is when I come into my studio to work, I have one of those salt candle holders. And it holds a little tea light, and I put a tea light in and light that. And that signifies to myself, it's time to be creative. I'm in my studio, inviting those sort of creative vibes into my life, and that sets that intention that now is my creative time. I talked about my morning routine. I have elevated that into a ritual as well. I now have a little tray, and on that tray, I have some crystals on there. I have, when the days are shorter, like it's coming up, I put a candle on there that I'll light, because a lot of times I'll go out and it's still dark in the morning. Last time I visited my mom, she found a 4-leaf clover, and I pressed it and brought it home with me. That's on my tray now as well. So I carry my tray out with my coffee, these items to me that help kind of set a mood of introspection, reflection, and it turns my just ordinary morning routine of going outside, having coffee and reading, to me it elevates it into a time of personal reflection, and it sets my tone for the day. It makes me feel good when I go out there with my tray with all these things on it. So rituals take those routines and habits that are already good for you, that help alleviate the decision fatigue, that help give you a sense of control and grounding in your life, and it elevates it into something higher, something that's nourishing, something that's help feeding your soul. And the other thing about rituals is that you can use them to help turn some of your routines into habits. Remember how I talked about the difference between routine and habit is that cue? If you take a ritual element like lighting a candle or setting out something meaningful to you, perhaps it's a holy book or a Bible or a journal, and when you set that in front of yourself, that's your cue to pray or meditate or have some gratitudes. You can use that ritual to help spark these habits, especially higher habits like that are really nourishing to you. So let's recap. So habits and routines help reduce decision fatigue. Habits are done with little or no thought. They're automatic. Parts of your brain can just take a break and take a rest. Routines require a little more brain power, but they're able to link together certain activities to reduce the decisions involved and help reduce that decision fatigue. And then rituals. Rituals elevate the routines and activities. It brings meaning and intention to what you're doing. So your challenge for this week is take a look at your life. Study your habits and routines. What are you doing? Can you improve them? Can you link some things together and put some more things on autopilot, or string together some of your routines, pair them with a cue so they become more like a habit? Can you take one of your routines and elevate it with a ritual? Make it more nourishing, more intentional, more meaningful. And if you want to delve deeper into habits, I suggest reading Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit. Another incredible book is James Clear's Atomic Habits. And of course, there is the classic Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'll have the links to those books plus the websites that I mentioned down in the show notes. So do you have any rituals? Would you like to start one? What would that look like? Share it with me. I'd love to know. Now, go be creative and feed your soul. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit like and subscribe. Share it with somebody, and please leave a comment. Let me know what you're doing.